I am a determined woman who faces numerous challenges in her life. Despite the obstacles, I finds a way to overcome them and emerge stronger. From personal struggles to professional setbacks, my journey is a testament to my unwavering resilience. Big ups to my amazing community. Before we dive in, I just wanted to say thanks for being part of this journey. If these empowerment stories are resonating with you, subscribe for free, and let's keep building this incredible community together. Now let's do this. As I sit here, reflecting on my journey, I'm reminded of the countless times I've been knocked down, only to get back up again. My name is Maya, and I've learned that life is a series of trials and tribulations, but it's how we respond that defines us. Growing up, I was always the strong one in my family. My parents were high school sweethearts who worked tirelessly to provide for me and my younger brother. But as I entered my teenage years, I began to realize that life wasn't always easy for them. My father's job was unstable, and my mother struggled to make ends meet. I watched as they navigated the ups and downs of life, always putting on a brave face for us kids. But despite their efforts, our family faced some tough times. There were nights when we went to bed with empty stomachs, and days when we had to rely on the kindness of others to get by. Through it all, my parents instilled in me a sense of resilience and determination. They taught me that no matter what life threw our way, we could overcome it if we stuck together and supported one another. As I grew older, I began to realize that I had a choice. I could let the struggles of my childhood define me, or I could use them as fuel to propel myself forward. I chose the latter. I worked hard in school, determined to create a better life for myself and my family. But just as things were starting to look up, life threw me another curveball. My mother fell ill, and our family's world was turned upside down. I had to become the caregiver, the breadwinner, and the rock for my family. It was a heavy burden to bear, but I refused to give up. My mother's diagnosis was a shock to our entire family. She had always been the pillar of strength, the one who held us all together. But now, she was the one who needed our care and support. I remember the day the doctor delivered the news, his words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I watched my mother's health decline. She was no longer the vibrant, energetic person I had grown up with. The chemotherapy sessions left her weak and frail, and I had to take on more responsibilities to care for her and my family. My father, though well-intentioned, was struggling to cope with the situation. He was torn between his own emotions and the need to be strong for us. My younger brother, who had always been close to our mother, was heartbroken. I felt like I had to be the strong one, the one who held everything together. Despite the challenges, I refused to give up. I poured my heart and soul into caring for my mother, juggling my own studies and part-time job to make ends meet. There were times when I felt overwhelmed, when the weight of responsibility seemed too much to bear. But every time I looked at my mother's frail face, I knew I had to keep going. As the months passed, my mother's condition worsened. The cancer had spread, and the doctors gave us a grim prognosis. I felt like my world was falling apart, but I refused to lose hope. I held on to every glimmer of positivity, every shred of hope that things might get better. One day, my mother called me to her bedside. She looked at me with eyes that were sunken but still full of love and pride. "Maya, I know I'm not going to be here much longer," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I want you to promise me one thing. Promise me you'll keep going, no matter what. Promise me you'll chase your dreams and make a better life for yourself." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I promise, Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "I'll make you proud." My mother smiled weakly, and I could see the relief in her eyes. She knew that I would be okay, that I would find a way to heal and move forward. I threw myself into caring for my mother, determined to make her comfortable and happy despite her illness. I cooked her favorite meals, read to her, and watched her favorite movies with her. I even learned how to give her massages to ease her pain. As the days went by, I noticed that my mother's spirits began to lift whenever I was around. She would smile weakly, and her eyes would light up with pride whenever I accomplished something. I realized that my presence was giving her strength, and that knowledge gave me the motivation to keep going. One day, I decided to take a different approach. Instead of dwelling on her illness, I started sharing stories of my childhood, of happy memories we had made together. I told her about my dreams and aspirations, and she listened with a sparkle in her eye. For a brief moment, we forgot about the cancer, and it was just us, enjoying each other's company. My mother would often tell me, "Maya, you're strong, just like your grandmother." She'd share stories of her own mother, who had faced incredible hardships and overcome them with courage and determination. Those stories inspired me to keep pushing forward, even when things seemed impossible. As the months passed, my mother's condition remained stable, and I continued to care for her with all my heart. I knew that every moment I spent with her was precious, and I cherished every second. But despite my best efforts, there were days when the pain and fatigue overwhelmed her. Those were the days when I felt helpless, when all I could do was hold her hand and wish for a miracle. Still, I refused to give up. I kept fighting, kept caring, and kept loving her with every fiber of my being. And in those moments, my mother would look at me with gratitude and love, and I knew that I was making a difference. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, I began to feel the weight of caregiving bearing down on me. My mother's condition was deteriorating, and I was struggling to keep up with her needs. The pain medication wasn't working as well as it used to, and she was in constant pain. I felt helpless, watching her suffer and not being able to do anything to ease her pain. One day, my mother's doctor called me into his office to discuss her treatment plan. He explained that her cancer had progressed, and we needed to consider more aggressive treatment options. I was torn between wanting to do everything possible to save her and the reality of her suffering. I broke down in tears, feeling overwhelmed and unsure of what to do. The doctor offered words of encouragement, but I knew that ultimately the decision was mine. I felt like I was being pulled in too many directions, and I didn't know how much more I could handle. As I left the doctor's office, I felt like I was walking through a fog. Everything seemed uncertain, and I didn't know what the future held. I knew I had to be strong for my mother, but I was struggling to find the strength within myself. When I got home, my mother asked me about the doctor's visit. I tried to reassure her that everything would be okay, but she saw right through me. She knew I was struggling, and she reached out to hold my hand. "Maya, I know this is hard on you," she said, her voice weak but full of love. "But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. You're an amazing daughter, and I'm grateful for every moment we've had together." Her words touched my heart, and I felt a surge of determination. I knew I had to keep going, no matter what. I would face whatever challenges came our way, and I would do everything in my power to make her proud. One day, after weeks of struggling with pain and fatigue, my mother woke up with a glimmer of energy. She smiled weakly, but it was a smile nonetheless. I was taken aback, surprised by the sudden change. "Good morning, Maya," she said, her voice a little stronger than usual. "I think I'm feeling a bit better today." I couldn't believe it. Could it be that the new medication was finally working? I helped her get out of bed, and we sat on the couch together. She leaned on me, but I could feel a sense of lightness in her body that I hadn't felt in weeks. As the day went on, my mother's energy levels improved slightly. She was able to eat a little more, and even managed to watch a movie with me without falling asleep. It was a small victory, but it gave me hope. Over the next few days, my mother's progress continued. She started to gain a bit of weight, and her pain levels decreased. She even began to joke and laugh with me, and I saw glimpses of the woman she used to be. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Maybe, just maybe, we were turning a corner. Maybe my mother would beat this cancer after all. As we sat on the couch together, watching the sunset, my mother turned to me and said, "Maya, I don't know what the future holds, but I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful for you, and for the love we share." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. I'm grateful too, Mom, I said. I'm grateful for every moment we have together. In that moment, nothing else mattered. The cancer, the struggles, the uncertainty, all of it faded into the background, and all that was left was the love we shared. As the weeks went by, my mother's health continued to improve. She gained more weight, and her energy levels increased. She started to take short walks around the block, and even began to do some light gardening again. I was overjoyed to see her like this. It was like a weight had been lifted off both our shoulders. We started to make plans for the future again, talking about things we wanted to do once she was fully recovered. The doctor was amazed at her progress and started to talk about tapering off some of her medications. My mother was thrilled at the prospect of being able to live a more normal life again. As she continued to improve, our relationship started to return to what it was before her diagnosis. We would laugh and joke together, and I would confide in her about my hopes and dreams. It was like a new chapter in our lives had begun. One day, my mother turned to me and said, "Maya, I don't know what I would have done without you. You've been my rock throughout this entire journey. I'm so proud of the strong, capable woman you've become." I felt a lump form in my throat as I hugged her tightly. "I'm just glad you're getting better, Mom," I said. "I've missed you so much." As we hugged, I knew that this experience had brought us closer together. We had faced adversity and come out stronger on the other side. The months went by, and my mother's health continued to improve. She regained her strength, and her energy levels returned to normal. She started to take on more responsibilities around the house, and even began to cook again. The doctor was thrilled with her progress and declared her cancer-free. We were overjoyed and celebrated with a big dinner. As my mother's health returned to normal, our lives started to feel like they did before her diagnosis. We would spend our days doing normal things, like going for walks, watching movies, and just enjoying each other's company. I was grateful to have my mother back, and I cherished every moment we spent together. I realized that life is precious, and that every day is a gift. My mother's full recovery also gave me the opportunity to focus on my own goals and dreams. I started to pursue my passion for art again, and even started taking classes. As I looked at my mother, I knew that she was more than just a parent to me. She was my friend, my confidant, and my inspiration. I was grateful for her strength and resilience, and I knew that I would always be there for her. With my mother's full recovery, our story comes full circle. We faced adversity, and we came out stronger on the other side. We learned to appreciate the little things in life, and to never take our time together for granted. And as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, my mother turned to me and said, "Maya, I'm so proud of the woman you've become. You're strong, capable, and kind. I know that you'll make a difference in the world." I smiled, feeling grateful for my mother's love and support. "Thanks, Mom," I said. "I couldn't have done it without you." As my mother's health continued to improve, I started to focus on my own life and goals. I threw myself into my art and started to build a portfolio to showcase my work. I even started to think about opening my own studio one day. But just as things were falling into place, I received some unexpected news. The art school I had applied to had rejected my application. I was devastated. All my dreams of becoming a professional artist seemed to be slipping away. I felt like I was back at square one, unsure of what to do next. I had always believed that art school was the key to success, and now that door seemed closed to me. My mother noticed that something was wrong and asked me what was bothering me. I broke down and told her about the rejection letter. She listened patiently and then offered some words of wisdom. "Maya, rejection is not the end of the world. It's just a bump in the road. You have talent and passion, and that's what matters most. Don't give up on your dreams just yet." Her words of encouragement gave me the strength to keep going. I decided to take her advice and not give up. I started to look for other opportunities and even considered starting my own art business. As I navigated this new challenge, I realized that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected places. I learned to be more resilient and to never give up on my dreams. As I started to build my art business, I faced a new set of challenges. I had to learn how to market myself, manage finances, and deal with clients. It was overwhelming at times, but I was determined to make it work. One of the biggest challenges I faced was finding a studio space. I couldn't afford to rent a studio, so I had to get creative. I ended up converting a small shed in our backyard into a studio. It wasn't ideal, but it was a start. Another challenge I faced was finding clients. I spent hours creating a website, social media accounts, and marketing materials. I even participated in local art fairs and markets. But despite my best efforts, I just couldn't seem to get the traction I needed. I started to doubt myself and my abilities. Was I good enough? Was my art worth anything? I felt like I was stuck in a rut, and I didn't know how to get out. My mother noticed that I was struggling and offered to help. She introduced me to some of her friends who were art collectors, and they gave me some valuable advice. They told me to keep creating, to stay true to myself, and to never give up. Their words of encouragement gave me the boost I needed. I refocused on my art and started to create pieces that were truly meaningful to me. And slowly but surely, my business started to take off. I started to get commissions and even sold a few pieces to local collectors. But just as things were starting to look up, I faced another challenge. A big art gallery in the city offered me a show, but with one condition. I had to create art that fit their theme, which wasn't exactly what I was known for. I was torn. Part of me wanted to take the opportunity, but another part of me didn't want to compromise my art. I decided to take the opportunity and create art that fit the gallery's theme. I spent weeks working on new pieces, trying to fit into the mold they had created for me. I was nervous about compromising my art, but I wanted to see where this opportunity would take me. The night of the show arrived, and I was excited to see my art displayed in such a prestigious gallery. But as I looked around at the other artists' work, I felt a pang of doubt. My art didn't seem to fit in with the rest of the show. It felt forced, like I had compromised my vision to fit someone else's idea of what art should be. The reviews from the critics and attendees were mixed. Some people loved my work, while others seemed to misunderstand it entirely. I felt like I was stuck in a weird limbo, where I wasn't sure if I had made the right decision. The worst part was that the gallery didn't offer me another show. They said that my work wasn't what they were looking for, despite the fact that I had created it specifically for them. I felt like I had wasted my time and energy. I was disappointed and frustrated. I realized that I had compromised my art for the wrong reasons. I shouldn't have tried to fit into someone else's mold. I should have stayed true to myself and my vision. As I looked back on the experience, I realized that it had taught me a valuable lesson. I learned that it's okay to take risks and try new things, but I shouldn't compromise my art for the sake of fame or fortune. I should stay true to myself and create art that means something to me. With this newfound understanding, I decided to refocus on my own unique style and vision. I started working on new pieces that were authentic and meaningful to me. It was liberating to create art without the pressure of external expectations. But just as I was getting back into my groove, I received some unexpected news. A rival artist had been spreading rumors about me, claiming that I had only gotten the gallery show because of favoritism. I was shocked and hurt. How would I handle this new challenge? I was devastated by the rumors. I had always been proud of my hard work and dedication to my art, and now it seemed like no one believed me. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I had somehow fooled everyone into thinking I was a talented artist. But as I talked to my mother about the situation, she reminded me of my strengths and accomplishments. She told me to focus on my art and not let the opinions of others define me. I took her advice to heart and decided to address the rumors head-on. I posted a message on social media, sharing my side of the story and thanking my supporters for their kindness and understanding. The response was overwhelming. Many of my followers rallied around me, sharing their own stories of struggle and perseverance. They reminded me that everyone faces criticism and negativity at some point in their lives, and that it's how we respond that matters. With renewed confidence and determination, I continued to create art that was true to myself. I ignored the naysayers and focused on my passion, letting my work speak for itself. As time passed, the rumors faded away, and my reputation as a talented artist was solidified. I learned that true success comes from staying true to oneself and persevering through challenges. But just as things were going smoothly, I received an unexpected phone call from a prominent art critic. She wanted to feature me in her upcoming article, but she had some tough questions for me. How would I handle the scrutiny? I was nervous about the interview, but I was also excited about the opportunity to share my story and showcase my art. The critic asked me tough questions about my inspirations, my creative process, and my views on the art world. I answered her questions honestly, sharing my thoughts and feelings about my art. I talked about my struggles and challenges, and how they had shaped me into the artist I am today. The critic seemed impressed with my responses, and I could tell that she was genuinely interested in my story. She asked me about my plans for the future, and I shared my dreams of creating art that inspires and uplifts others. When the article was published, I was thrilled to see that the critic had written a glowing review of my work. She praised my unique style and perspective, and highlighted my passion and dedication to my craft. The article brought a lot of attention to my art, and I started to receive more commissions and requests. I was grateful for the opportunity to share my art with a wider audience, and I was proud of the person I had become. As I looked back on my journey, I realized that I had learned so much about myself and about art. I had discovered that true creativity comes from within, and that staying true to oneself is the key to success. I continued to create art that inspired and uplifted others, and I was grateful for the opportunity to share my gift with the world. But as I was basking in the glow of my newfound success, I received a surprise visit from someone who would change everything. I opened the door to find a woman standing on my porch, her eyes shining with a warm smile. She introduced herself as Sophia, an art curator from a prestigious museum. "I've been following your work, Maya," she said, "and I'm blown away by your talent. I'd like to invite you to showcase your art in our museum's upcoming exhibit." I was stunned. A museum exhibit? It was a dream come true. I had always hoped to have my art displayed in a place where it could be seen and appreciated by so many people. Sophia explained that the exhibit would feature emerging artists, and she believed that my unique style and perspective would be a perfect fit. She showed me some of the plans she had for the exhibit, and I was impressed by her vision and creativity. As we talked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and nervousness. This was a huge opportunity, and I wanted to make sure I did everything I could to make it a success. Sophia asked me about my ideas for the exhibit, and I shared some of my thoughts and inspirations. She listened intently, nodding along and making notes. "I think you'd be perfect for this exhibit," she said, smiling. "Let's work together to make it happen." I was thrilled at the prospect of working with Sophia and showcasing my art in the museum. But as I looked around my studio, I realized that I had a lot of work to do to get ready. I threw myself into creating new pieces for the exhibit, pouring my heart and soul into every brushstroke. Sophia had given me a theme to work with, and I was determined to create art that would blow her away. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. I worked tirelessly, experimenting with new techniques and mediums. I pushed myself to think outside the box and create something truly innovative. As the pieces started to come together, I could see the vision taking shape. I was creating art that was raw, emotional, and powerful. I knew that this was my chance to shine, and I was determined to make the most of it. Sophia visited me regularly, offering feedback and guidance. She was tough but fair, and I appreciated her honesty. She pushed me to take risks and try new things, and I was grateful for her support. Finally, the day arrived when I had to deliver the pieces to the museum. I was nervous but excited, knowing that this was a momentous occasion in my career. As I arrived at the museum, I was struck by the grandeur of the space. The walls were white, and the lighting was perfect. I could envision my art hanging on those walls, and it gave me goosebumps. Sophia greeted me warmly and we began to unpack the pieces. As we hung them on the walls, I stepped back to admire my work. It looked stunning. The colors popped, and the emotions shone through. The exhibit was going to be a huge success. I could feel it. But just as I was about to leave the museum, Sophia approached me with a concerned look on her face. "Sophia, what's wrong?" I asked, noticing the concern on her face. "It's just that, well, the museum's director has some reservations about one of the pieces," Sophia said, hesitating. I felt a pang of disappointment. "Which piece?" I asked, wondering if I had misjudged the director's taste. "The one with the bold colors and abstract shapes," Sophia replied. "He thinks it's a bit too unconventional." I nodded understandingly. I had expected some pushback on that piece, but I had hoped it wouldn't be an issue. "What does he want me to do?" I asked. Sophia smiled. "He wants you to make some adjustments to make it more palatable to the audience." I frowned, feeling a surge of frustration. I didn't want to compromise my art, but I also didn't want to risk the exhibit being canceled. "What do you think?" I asked Sophia. "I think you should talk to him and see what he has in mind," Sophia said. "Maybe there's a way to find a compromise that works for both of you." I nodded, deciding to take Sophia's advice. I scheduled a meeting with the director and prepared to defend my art. I walked into the meeting with the director feeling confident and prepared. I knew that I had created something special, and I was determined to defend my art. The director, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, greeted me curtly and got straight to the point. "Ms. Maya, I think your piece is unusual. I'm not sure it fits with the tone of the exhibit." I smiled calmly, anticipating this reaction. "I understand your concerns, Director. However, I believe that my piece is a reflection of my unique perspective and style. It's meant to challenge the viewer's perceptions and evoke an emotional response." The director frowned, clearly unimpressed. "I'm not sure that's what we're looking for in this exhibit. Can you make some adjustments to tone it down a bit?" I shook my head firmly. "I'm afraid not, Director. My art is a reflection of who I am, and I won't compromise on my vision. I'm willing to discuss ways to present the piece in a way that might make it more accessible to the audience, but I'm not willing to change the piece itself." The director looked taken aback by my assertiveness. "I see," he said, his tone slightly softer. "Well, I appreciate your passion, Ms. Maya. Let me think about it, and we'll discuss it further." I left the meeting feeling hopeful. I had stood my ground, and I was proud of myself for advocating for my art. Now, all I had to do was wait and see what the director would decide. As I waited, I couldn't help but wonder what the outcome would be. Would the director back down, or would I have to find a way to compromise? The uncertainty was nerve-wracking, but I was determined to stay true to myself and my art. Sophia asked me about my ideas for the exhibit, and I shared some of my thoughts and inspirations. She listened intently, nodding along and making notes. "I think you'd be perfect for this exhibit," she said, smiling. "Let's work together to make it happen." I was thrilled at the prospect of working with Sophia and showcasing my art in the museum. But as I looked around my studio, I realized that I had a lot of work to do to get ready. I threw myself into creating new pieces for the exhibit, pouring my heart and soul into every brushstroke. Sophia had given me a theme to work with, and I was determined to create art that would blow her away. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. I worked tirelessly, experimenting with new techniques and mediums. I pushed myself to think outside the box and create something truly innovative. As the pieces started to come together, I could see the vision taking shape. I was creating art that was raw, emotional, and powerful. I knew that this was my chance to shine, and I was determined to make the most of it. Sophia visited me regularly, offering feedback and guidance. She was tough but fair, and I appreciated her honesty. She pushed me to take risks and try new things, and I was grateful for her support. Finally, the day arrived when I had to deliver the pieces to the museum. I was nervous but excited, knowing that this was a momentous occasion in my career. As I arrived at the museum, I was struck by the grandeur of the space. The walls were white, and the lighting was perfect. I could envision my art hanging on those walls, and it gave me goosebumps. Sophia greeted me warmly, and we began to unpack the pieces. As we hung them on the walls, I stepped back to admire my work. It looked stunning. The colors popped, and the emotions shone through. The exhibit was going to be a huge success. I could feel it. But just as I was about to leave the museum, Sophia approached me with a concerned look on her face. "Sophia, what's wrong?" I asked, noticing the concern on her face. "It's just that, well, the museum's director has some reservations about one of the pieces," Sophia said, hesitating. I felt a pang of disappointment. "Which piece?" I asked, wondering if I had misjudged the director's taste. "The one with the bold colors and abstract shapes," Sophia replied. "He thinks it's a bit too unconventional." I nodded understandingly. I had expected some pushback on that piece, but I had hoped it wouldn't be an issue. "What does he want me to do?" I asked. Sophia smiled. "He wants you to make some adjustments to make it more palatable to the audience." I frowned, feeling a surge of frustration. I didn't want to compromise my art, but I also didn't want to risk the exhibit being canceled. "What do you think?" I asked Sophia. "I think you should talk to him and see what he has in mind," Sophia said. "Maybe there's a way to find a compromise that works for both of you." I nodded, deciding to take Sophia's advice. I scheduled a meeting with the director and prepared to defend my art. I walked into the meeting with the director feeling confident and prepared. I knew that I had created something special, and I was determined to defend my art. The director, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, greeted me curtly and got straight to the point. "Ms. Maya, I think your piece is unusual. I'm not sure it fits with the tone of the exhibit." I smiled calmly, anticipating this reaction. "I understand your concerns, Director. However, I believe that my piece is a reflection of my unique perspective and style. It's meant to challenge the viewer's perceptions and evoke an emotional response." The director frowned, clearly unimpressed. "I'm not sure that's what we're looking for in this exhibit. Can you make some adjustments to tone it down a bit?" I shook my head firmly. "I'm afraid not, Director. My art is a reflection of who I am, and I won't compromise on my vision. I'm willing to discuss ways to present the piece in a way that might make it more accessible to the audience, but I'm not willing to change the piece itself." The director looked taken aback by my assertiveness. "I see," he said, his tone slightly softer. "Well, I appreciate your passion, Ms. Maya. Let me think about it, and we'll discuss it further." I left the meeting feeling hopeful. I had stood my ground, and I was proud of myself for advocating for my art. Now, all I had to do was wait and see what the director would decide. As I waited, I couldn't help but wonder what the outcome would be. Would the director back down, or would I have to find a way to compromise? The uncertainty was nerve-wracking, but I was determined to stay true to myself and my art. But then, finally, I received a call from Sophia. "Maya, I have some good news," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "The director has decided to keep your piece in the exhibit, just as it is. He realizes that your unique perspective is exactly what the exhibit needs." I felt a surge of relief and excitement. I had stood up for myself and my art, and it had paid off. "That's amazing!" I exclaimed. "Thank you so much for letting me know." Sophia laughed. "You're welcome, Maya. You deserve it. Now let's get ready for the exhibit opening. It's going to be a huge success. I can feel it." I hung up the phone, feeling elated. The exhibit was going to be everything I had hoped for and more. But as I looked around my studio, I realized that I still had a lot of work to do before the opening night. The exhibit opening was just around the corner, and I was getting ready to showcase my art to the world. But little did I know, something unexpected was about to happen that would change everything. The night of the exhibit arrived, and I was nervous but excited. The museum was packed with art lovers, critics, and collectors, all eager to see the latest works from emerging artists. As I stood beside my pieces, I watched as people reacted to my art. Some were moved to tears, while others were inspired to think differently about the world. I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that my art was making a difference in people's lives. The reviews were glowing, with critics praising my unique style and perspective. Collectors were interested in purchasing my pieces, and I received offers for commissions and future exhibits. Sophia approached me with a huge smile on her face. "Maya, you're a star!" she exclaimed. "The exhibit is a huge success, and your art is getting all the attention." I beamed with pride, feeling grateful for the opportunity to showcase my art. "Thank you, Sophia," I said, hugging her. "I couldn't have done it without you." As the night drew to a close, I looked around at the people who had supported me on my journey. My mother was there, beaming with pride, and Sophia was smiling, knowing that she had played a part in my success. I realized that this was just the beginning of my artistic journey. I had worked hard to get to this point, and I was ready for whatever came next. I was excited to see where my art would take me, and I knew that I would always stay true to myself and my vision. And so, my story came full circle. From a small village to a prestigious museum, I had followed my dreams and made them a reality. I was Maya, the artist, and I was just getting started.